my parents went out at like 1:30. I chose to stay here. I think that's a good choice because they have not gone back. They have not come back. It is now 6:30. It has been 5 hours. So I've had 5 hours of free time. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, I watched this literally like 20 minutes ago. The Silence of the Lambs for the hater official Hater Club movie challenge week 13. It is prison week, and it's very appropriate. A lot of this movie takes place in a prison, talking to a very famous fictional serial killer that the current president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, seems to think of very highly for some reason. Hannibal Lecter, and yeah, I talked earlier about movies. I mean, in the previous videos about movies that have been so cemented in pop culture that watching them can often feel unrewarding because it feels like you've already seen them just with how many references have been made. And I was fearing the same with Silence of the Lambs. I know about that one scene of Buffalo Bill dancing around. I know that one scene of Clarice talking to Dr. Lecter. I know all the famous lines, I know the ending. But it speaks to just how good this movie is that a even knowing those parts did not take away at all just on how much of a masterpiece this truly is. And two, that it offered me so much more that I didn't know really from the cultural osmosis. Like it was thrilling to see why it's called the Silence of the to realize why it's titled the Silence of the Lambs. It was great to see where the moths in the poster come from, and it just gave me an overall impression that the joy I'm feeling watching it right now was the very same joy I would have probably gotten if I watched it in 1991 when it was first released. And yeah, it's very refreshing. You're very right. I had the same experience with like Punch Drunk Love and No Country for Old Men. I just fell in love with those movies that I thought I just basically knew everything about just because of The Simpsons and South Park and Gumball and shit like that. And I was mistaken. And the true masterpieces uh, really punch through that. They really pierce through that. They go beyond that initial hesitation, that initial uh, uh, that initial yeah that that initial hesitation, that initial doubt. I mean, that this is gonna be something you've seen because it's been referenced on Saturday Night Live. So like yeah, obviously the performances are great. This scared me much more than I thought it would. I don't know. Again, it just speaks to the performance of Anthony Hopkins, just how scary his delivery is, and it's a great performance. He deserves the Oscar. Obviously, this is a fucking legendary performance. Everyone knows about this. Everyone quotes him, and yeah, just it was great. And I knew coming in that this movie wasn't about catching Hannibal Lecter, and I don't know because I've been told that, but I was also given the impression that he's barely in this movie, which is just wrong. He is definitely a star of this movie. And yeah, he chews up all the scenery. It's just a very solid movie. Like the arc is very well established. It's very visually resourceful in its imagery. Like the first scene is Clarice trying to running uphill because that's what she's doing basically the entire movie. Not only in the pursuit of Buffalo Bill, but just as a woman in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. There's a lot of fun editing trickery here, especially the scene with Buffalo Bill and his doorbell. That's very great. Obviously, the lines, like I said, are very memorable. It's just an undeniable masterpiece. If there's one thing I have to criticize, it's something I criticize Psycho as well, which is also an undeniable masterpiece that I consider perfect. It's the unfortunate fact that this movie and Psycho have basically become tent poles of a lot of transphobic stereotypes. They uphold and encourage um, that trans people are innately mentally disturbed and possibly uh, deranged to the point of being a danger to everyone. And obviously, that's just not the case. And both these movies have gone on record saying that this is like, I mean, Silence of the Lambs, for Pete's sake, has Clarice Starling saying that the literature doesn't uh, link transsexuality with violence. But you know, like maybe they could have done something more. I mean, I struggle criticizing it. It is definitely a valid criticism, but I feel like it is something out of the control of the filmmakers, of the artists. You know, like you cannot anything if it weren't these movies. I feel that something else would be upholding what a transphobe believes trans people to be. You know, like their prejudice will be encouraged some way or another. That's just how these bigots work, and like yeah, but it's a reality that you have to face, you know, and it's unfortunate. It's a blemish, definitely, it's a blemish, but yeah. But besides that, again, it's an absolute masterpiece. Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster are great. You know, it's a very like I said, there are no leaks when it comes to the story. It's very visually effective. It's great technically all throughout, and yeah, yeah. Silence of the Lambs. What can I tell you that you don't already know about Silence of the fucking Lambs?